thanks so much for joining us. I'm Lorelei Shamayo. This is the Me, We Metaphysical Empowerment and Wellness events. We bring body, mind, heart, soul events to people throughout the Northwest, Seattle, Portland, Salem, Eugene, and also online. We interview our practitioners and vendors so you get a chance to know who we are before you meet us at an event. I'm here today interviewing Thorne Davis, and Dana Walls is also with us interpreting. So Thorne, it's great to be with you.
It's wonderful to be with you as well. Wonderful.
Great. So please tell us, what is it that you do? What do you share with people at our events?
Well, I actually have a lot of different specialties. I do tarot readings, I do oracle, I do fairy work. So I just have a plethora of different skills and work with cards that I do. I also read runes. So people often tend to be very interested in that, rune work and things like that. And I'm not only limited to these areas, I also do energy work as well and healing. So I like to be able to help cleanse people and really get deep down in there. So oftentimes people can feel really unsettled or maybe some blockage or stuff with their energy. And so I like to do work to try to help support people get cleansed that way. I really enjoy talking about like people's family, genealogy, you know, their history and things like that, that connection. Maybe there's something in their past that's causing a blockage. So sort of working with them on a deeper level to figure that out and things like that. So honestly, yeah, that's sort of my main avenues of work. So energy, tarot, runes, astrology, those are my primary focus.
I didn't know you did so many different things. And in particular, a thing that stood out for me is that you do fairy work.
Yes.
Because I so pick up fairy energy in you, and it just makes so much sense.
That's great. Yes, it's true. I have a strong connection with that. Yes, indeed.
So well, how did you open to your work? How did you first realize that you're a practitioner?
Oh, wow. It's a great story, actually. So a long time ago, in this lifetime, I would say I was maybe 26, 27 thereabouts. And then that was a good year for my astrology. And so I met someone that year who would become a really great friend. And so we were chatting, getting to know each other. And they had a tarot deck. And they gave it to me and they said, hey, you know, I think this would be something that would really interest you. You know, I don't need to use this anymore. And that particular deck was the Gandalf deck. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that particular deck. And so I started going through the deck and I just loved it. You know, it was talking about, the goddess deck, that was an important mistake. It was talking about the various goddesses and their various countries, and it was telling the myths and the stories about them. I'm a huge nerd for history and culture, myths and stories. Growing up my whole life, I've always loved that. And so this deck was just absolutely a perfect embodiment of that, and I fell deep in love with it. And then as time went on, I was working with that. And then I started doing some practicing and reading when I was about 29 or 30. So, you know, sort of more formal. I mean, honestly, I think I've always had it in me. You know, it was just sort of at that time, it was sort of an awakening more for me. So it was like internal building where I was able to connect with it more.
Wow. And so seeing that, it awakened interest in you?
Correct.
How did that grow to you being a practitioner?
Yeah, and again, really, you know, it was about the stories and things that really I felt helped wake me up. Sorry, the quotes. So I started connecting more sort of with my inner self, and then I started doing some self-work. I started trying to understand a little bit more the foundation and so getting myself set up. And then I was asking myself, what's my purpose? What am I here to do with this work? So I took about 2 or 3 years to sort of figure that out. You know, I met people on the line, I met people through the community, I received a lot of feedback and interest where people were saying, you need to do this. Many people were very supportive and sort of pushing me towards that and saying you'd be a good fit for this. And so I sort of took all that and assimilated that together, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
Mm. And then say a little bit of the energy healing. How did that start showing up?
Really? Wow. I guess, again, I've just become extra sensitive with the energy. So I've always been very sensitive to energy. So for example, when I meet a person, I haven't yet maybe figured out exactly who they are. They haven't told me who they are, but I can see something inside of them. I can see if maybe there's some inner turmoil, or maybe they're having a bad day, or they're depressed. So just by looking at people, I can sort of get a good read on them based on their energy. And then perhaps maybe then I'll ask, is it okay? Do you mind if I ask to maybe do some work with you? And if they say yes, then we'll do a little more chatting. We'll make that connection. And then I can maybe even go a little bit further and say, do you mind if I check with your energy? I'm just feeling something is maybe a bit off. Most of the time, people look at me and they go, oh, I'm surprised you noticed that. And then I have to say, well, I'm very sensitive to that type of energy. So. Another time, or another great example is like buildings or anything like that. I'm very visual. So, again, I'm a history nerd. I love culture, anything like that. So like museums, anything connected with ancient history. So I'll actually be able to go in and feel that energy of the space immediately. Anything that's being projected through those cultures or those myths or anything like that, I can connect it pretty quickly. So it's sort of like in place of hearing, I have this like meta energy sensing.
Yeah, that's great. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that's just a few different examples. Yeah.
Yeah, so sensitive. So when people come to work with you, are all of the different modalities that you do displayed, or how did they know? Do they come with a topic they want to explore? Are they interested in modality? What typically happens?
Most of the time when someone comes to my table, I will be able to sort of get a really quick read on them right away. And I'll sort of know like, oh, would you like to work with, you seem like you're interested in chakrams, or maybe you'd be interested in, so I'll ask a couple questions. And then again, most of the time people are fairly surprised that I do get it right, because often they already have an interest in that, but maybe they haven't explored it fully yet, or they'd be curious to discuss it a little bit more. Sometimes too, when I'm sitting down and I'm doing a reading with somebody, I'll give them the deck and say, go ahead and choose your cards. Other times maybe I'm sitting across from somebody and I sort of already know which deck I need to use with them, or rather what they need. And then allow them to pick and sort of see if they pick the deck that I think would be the right choice for them, and they do it. So, it really just depends. But again, we tend to have that immediate connection, which is nice. And so, just sort of looking at each other and sort of figuring that out, we can generally go from there and figure out the best modality. So sometimes just by chatting and asking questions, maybe somebody, it needs something else, I can offer that service that I might not have available at that booth that time. I would be willing to meet that person outside of that time as well, based on their need. And so sometimes we can make that connection just by chatting. Sometimes we'll want to meet them later for a more deep session. And as you know, it really just depends. Every time is different. So
it's great. Maybe one thing I want to mention too, just for people listening to you, I know that at an event we actually talk. So you talk with people at events. You don't have Dana with you.
So far, I've not had an interpreter at events. So right now I'm doing a little bit of work both on the situation and myself to try to figure out maybe a more balanced way to have access at events. So maybe we could try to add access for both, the consumers or the people and myself. And so if there's an interpreter available, maybe that's an option we could look into.
Yeah, at the larger events, maybe I could do something like that. That's great.
That'd be great. Yeah, cool. Yeah, we definitely agree on that.
Well, if people would like to explore more with you outside of the events, how do they contact you online?
So you can go to our website. It's www.spiritoracle.com. Spiritoracle.com. You can contact me through that. I also have Instagram, and that's at heart of, I'm sorry, one second.
Could you say that one?
Second. Yeah, it's Heart of Oak 8. Heart of Oak 8.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
I guess, is there anything else that you want to share just about what you do or what it's like working with people or anything like that before we finish?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just throw this out there. So most of the time when I meet people that are hearing when they come to my table, you know, they don't expect that I'm deaf. So I have to explain, oh yes, I'm deaf, I can't hear. But, you know, most of the time it sort of depends maybe on people's knowledge. Some people have never met a deaf person before and they have no idea. And I say, oh, it's absolutely fine. We can write back and forth. We can use our phones and text back and forth to communicate. So we have a lot of different options for having communication. And so some people I meet, I have to say, it's okay. We can do this. And then other people I meet maybe know a little bit of sign, then we're able to chat in ESL. So, you know, you can sort of communicate that way. So that's always a nice connection to have with people in sign language. But really, there's a myriad of ways that we can communicate. And it sort of depends on how people are responding to me. So it's always different, you know, there's not really a typical response. And I have to say, well, you know, I'm also not typical, you know, it's good that, you know, it's good that we have to try and figure this out. So, and I just add, I feel that what I can offer is sort of a more dimensionality where I can sort of work in different dimensions. What I mean is, you know, I sort of move between the hearing worlds. So I feel like that's sort of like a 2D interaction. So if we're sitting down, I feel like everything is sort of more expanded and amplified. And so we can get sort of, you know, more like a 3D picture, you know, sort of more of a meta picture of what's happening. So that's something I'm able to bring.
Oh, that's great. I'm so excited that this worked to connect and
Absolutely, I am too. Yeah, and it's just been really lovely to connect with you.
great. So those of you that are listening and watching, you can find us online at mewefair.com. That's MEWEFAIR.com. We look forward to seeing you at our events. Thanks so much, Thorne. Thanks so much, Dana.
Thank you so much. Thank you.